The late President Hage Geingob and wife Monica Geingos had an intriguing love story, much to the admiration of the citizens whom they pledged to serve. How they met, who made the first move, and who initiated the first date remained a mystery of the ever-giggling lovebirds. Well, that was until we set Maria, Kakuku, Monica Geingos, down to take us out of the curiosity. Dr. Geingob had taken his much-needed break from the public eye by taking a nap, and we tried to keep it shush for him not to hear the love secrets that were about to be revealed.
We'll go around the other side. Where do you want me to sit? Here we go.
Thank you so much for having us into your personal space, your house. So, firstly, who is Monica Geingos? We know her as the mother of the nation, First Lady of the Republic of Namibia. We know her as a philanthropist, a lawyer, businesswoman, well-accomplished woman who are continentally worldwide. But who is Monica Geingos in her own words?
I think it's a person who hasn't changed. It's something I've been very intentional about. So I've kept a lot of my old routines, where I buy food, where I buy my fruit and vegetables, the friends that I have. I've kept all of my old connections because you don't want a position to change you. And I always advise people, never let the position change the person, because the person is permanent, the position is temporary. So Monica Geingos is actually Monica. And Monica, who I was 15 years ago, is very similar to who I am today. Have I changed? Yes, I have. There's something I've changed.
There has to be a middle name.
Actually, Blanche, there isn't. So you must remember that, and it's a story my father loves to tell, is that my grandmother was very desperate to have one of her grandkids named after her. And so when I was born, my father drove to my grandmother's village to tell her that I've been born. So apparently she kept on asking, Jan, who is it? What's the name? So when she was told it's Monica, she threw her hoe into the air, and she was the happiest person when she heard that I'm named after her. So I think my parents felt a bit bad to give me a second name, so I've only been Monica. But because I'm named after my grandmother, I'm called Kakuku, which is like small grandmother. So my family calls me Kakuku. So when somebody says Kakuku, then I know it's a family member. It's one of my aunts, it's one of my cousins. If somebody says Burucha, then I know that person is from university. If somebody calls me Mamons, I know that person is from Orangimund. So it's interesting how you know who's calling you based on the nickname that they use.
So how does the president call you?
He calls me Monica. I'm the one. So actually, the nickname he uses for me is Maria. And he tries to use it to disincentivize me from calling him Ogus. Because I call him Ogus or Gusgus, and he hates it. So he says, if I say Ogus, Maria. But he's only trying to bully me into stop from calling him Ogus. But I think he's accepted being called Ogus by me.
Flo, the other day, we accompanied yourself and your husband. And you saw the reaction of Namibians because they saw the two of you in your natural setting, interacting. And it was so heartwarming for us as the crew as well. But I can just imagine, there were some girls who also had a high five moment after greeting you. So here I am thinking, okay, years back when President Geingob, or in this case, I'm not allowed to say President Geingob, but Dr. Geingob, had planned to run for office. Some of us were still at varsity asking ourselves, okay, so who will be the next first lady? Because we don't know PM, the last we heard of him was he was divorced, so who? Those were the questions in the university corridors, in restaurants, I'm sure even in the political circles, until here comes this beautiful woman, and then we knew, oh, we are in good hands. So talk to us about the courtship.
Yes.
Who approached who?
It's a disputed story. It certainly was him. But we were friends for a long time. I worked in corporate finance, and I remember when he was no longer prime minister, I was one of the people he spoke to about getting into business. And I was then tasked to look, at that time I was doing structured finance deals, especially on BE. And we had quite a pipeline of potential transactions that we were working on, that we could place people. And I've placed quite a few people in transactions. And I thought to myself, but this is gold. Somebody of his caliber, somebody of his stature, leaving politics, wanting to go into business. So we spoke to a few clients, really built a nice potential pipeline for him. And we met again, and I told him, well, I've really worked on this. This is all of the things that you can do, and it will be very lucrative for you going forward. And he said to me, let me think about it. And he came back to me about a week later, after I've done all of this work and built this incredible pipeline for him, which I believe would have made him quite wealthy. And he came to me after about a week, 2 weeks, and he said to me, I'm a politician. I'm not a business person. I was a bit annoyed because now I need to go back to the clients and tell them the person that I said to them is going to be such a great anchor for their transactions is not interested anymore. But I was also impressed because in that moment I realized his heart is about service, it's not about money. And I think there were other people also doing similar transactions for him. And he proved to all of us in that moment that his is not about money, it's about people, it's about politics. Politics is in his DNA. And that's where I learned to respect him. I didn't like what he did. It cost me a lot of time and my bonus. But it certainly got my respect for him, that this is a person who's not driven by considerations. It's a person who's driven by principles. And that time he was, I think he was still a backbencher by then. It was just before he left to go to the States. So there I saw something pure and genuine in him. But the courtship didn't start there. We continued to be friends. So I was one of those people also asking him, but you need to get married. And he would always say, there's no constitutional obligation for me to get married.
We are still waiting for the gist of who asked who out first.
Yeah.
Where was the first date even?
So I don't think there was a first date. I think what started to happen is we started working more and more together, because then he became prime minister after the Congress where he was reaffirmed as vice president. And that time I was on the Public Office Bearers Commission. President Pwamba played a huge role in my trajectory. I adore President Pwamba. So I ended up on the President's Economic Advisory Council, but obviously Hage was a big part of the behind the scenes. So when there were political things I didn't understand, Hage served as a spotlight for many of us when we get stuck in politics, whether it's ruling party, whether it's stuff in government. You're serving on these structures. You're starting to notice there's a problem here. You don't know what the hell is going on, but you know there's a problem. And he was the person we would go to and say, but VP, something, I don't know what this is. This is what I've done. This is what this person is doing. What must I do? And he always gave us great advice. So we started spending more and more time together. And I think it was one of the World Cups where he then came to me and he said to me, you know what? I don't have a TV at home. can't I come watch World Cup at your house? And I had a lovely house. I said, no problem. I didn't see it's a move. This is my buddy. So you would come with his friends.
So were you single at the time?
I was single at the time.
Okay.
So he'd come with his friends and I would make sure there's food. There was no problem. After a while, I started to notice, after halftime, the friends are disappearing.
One by one, we always have things to do.
Absolutely, people are disappearing. But then we'd also start to talk. I think I talked to him about something. I confided in him about something. But that was personal. And he gave me great advice. And I was like, this guy is actually... But then he's an interesting person. And women, we are so intuitive. We know when there's a vibe. So I started to call him uncle. Because when you're trying to demotivate an older person, you call them uncle. Then he would send me a naughty text and he says, uncle. Uncle Hage. So I realized that he doesn't care about this uncle story of mine.
So you are not moved.
And the more we spoke on a personal level, the more I realized, but this man is actually my soulmate. But I had this thought in my head that there's an incongruency around age. And the more I thought about it, more and more, I had to ask myself, is this a you problem, as in you, Monica, has this problem? Or is it this a them problem? Am I concerned about how I feel about it? Or am I concerned about how society will feel about it? And the minute I really recognized that this is me being worried about other people's opinions, I rejected that. I've never been concerned about other people's opinions. Blanche, we must be selfish. When it comes to your happiness, if my soulmate is in a wheelchair, or my soulmate is a taxi driver, or my soulmate is a teacher, I need to not worry about what people are going to say. I must worry about how I feel. So eventually I decided I'm going to go with how I feel. Was there fire about it? Were there comments about it? Yes, there was. Not so nice.
Someone who born and bred in Bantu, So, but your relationship seemed to have also addressed that issue in a way, or in a subtle way.
Yes. I tell you, I've never considered tribe in a romantic decision. So I was also surprised by that conversation. I was surprised also by the assumptions that there was some questions about maybe it's gold digging. And I thought, but are these the same Namibians who saw me operating as a business person, who understand I have a balance sheet? Then I realized there's a level of misogyny here on the issue of balance sheets, because that was an entirely misplaced conversation. But I wasn't too hurt or concerned by people who questioned intent. Because when I had to have a cold conversation with myself, as a friend of Hage, I had to ask myself, Monica, if somebody came out of the blue and married this person as his friend, would you not have had a similar concern? And the answer I had for myself was yes, I probably would have. So I hold no grudge against somebody who questioned intent in the beginning. I will hold a grudge against somebody who questions intent now.
You got married on the 14th of February.
Yes.
Love Day, Valentine's Day, some call it Friendship Day, and
Yes.
all just the red and white. I know I'm a sucker for love. But
Yes.
how did the president ask you out? Did he organize maybe close off one restaurant in Bantu, took you there, swept you off your feet with
Yes.
some poetry? Or how did he ask you out?
These are people who went into exile in 1962. There's no such thing. So his love language isn't that. His love language is very pragmatic. He's a solid guy. He's loyal. He's honest, and that's his love language. He provides. He's generous, and that's how he shows love. It's not through the bells and whistles. It's through the substance. And that was very much his positioning as well, that look, I'm not I'm not a loose person. I'm very loyal. I don't play games. This is what I'm about. This is what I want. And I want it with you. And I don't want it with anybody else. And if you don't want it, I'm also okay. I'm not going to collapse if you don't want. And he made me think about it. He made me think about my own life, about what I want in a man. And he made me reflect on a few things. And I realized that I won't, if I had to ask the Lord the 5 key things that are important to me from a partner, it's everything that he had. The only thing I didn't ask the Lord was for the age to be a bit aligned. So it wasn't aligned at all. But that wasn't what was important to me. What was important to me was loyalty. It was we must get along. We must like each other.
Yeah.
He must be able to laugh at my jokes. I must be able to understand and laugh at his jokes. I don't want an irritating husband. I don't want a person who I can't respect. So I don't think I'm a soft or a gentle person who's a natural follower. But I'm also not a woman who doesn't believe that her husband has to be the head of the house. I do believe a husband has to be the head of household, but you must earn my respect. It's not to be taken for granted. So you can't be a rubbish lying around doing nothing and I must treat you as head of house. No. You must earn that. And
so he didn't go down on one knee?
No, he didn't. But whether he was president or not, his personality is a person who takes authority, but who takes responsibility. There's no authority without responsibility. There are men who want authority, but they don't want the responsibility that comes with authority.
Now, from looking at your husband and the way you are describing him, it would be foreign to many of us.
Yeah.
So we see him as this straightforward person that when he even starts speaking, some of us would stand there and just shiver and wonder, okay, how do I come back from that? Until so, but to hear you describe him like this, it's well, I would say it's genuine. It comes from the heart. But I would want to understand your point as well. Coming from being this solid, independent, single woman into being Mrs. Geingos, how did the transition happen for you? And of course, it came also with an extended family. How did you settle in?
2 things. The first, and I'm honest about this relationship with me and my personality would have never worked without a man who was secure in himself and who was older and more mature than me. It wasn't easy, Blunt. It wasn't easy. But if it wasn't for him and his temperament and his emotional intelligence, I don't think this marriage would have lasted. And his emotional intelligence was one that he could realize we can't go to sleep angry with each other. We don't agree on this topic, but we don't start ignoring each other. We talk out our differences, and not disrespectfully and in a disrespectful tone. Say what your view is. I'm also going to tell you what my view is. And even if we disagree, let's at least understand each other's points and agree to disagree. And that's his leadership, not mine. If it was my leadership, I don't think it was going to work. So it was a blessing in disguise that he was older and a little bit more mature. The blending of the families, I came with kids, he came with kids. I think, again, his children are blessed with his heart. Hage's, and I hear what you say, he can look very gruff and loud and but he's a gentle guy with a soft heart, and I think that's why he pretends to be gruff to the public. It's to protect his heart, because if he allows too many people in, it will be broken. But his kids are the same. So I've also learned as a wife that even if there's an issue I want to address, I must also have emotional intelligence to kind of check him out for the first 30 minutes that he comes home. How's the mood? How's the air? You know, he's got this thing where he says, yeah. But I've also learned that yeah isn't just a yeah. there's a yeah, and there's a yeah. And I know the angry yeah, and I know the happy yeah. So when I see that, then I know, okay, I can tackle him about this issue. But if I choose the wrong moment, if I choose the wrong yeah, and then maybe this guy's been dealing with security issues, he's been dealing with intelligence issues, he's been dealing with maybe problems in the party, and now his wife is also hassling him about something. What do you think the response is going to be? So when I want to deal with something that's sensitive, I always ask him, can we talk? And he knows what I mean. And then he'll tell me no. Then I know now's not the right time. But then tomorrow, I won't approach him. He'll come back to me and he says, was there something you wanted to say to me yesterday? And I say, yes, I wanted to talk to you about what you did that other day. I didn't like it and it didn't make me feel good. And then he'll hear me out. But if I had forced that discussion yesterday when he was not in the mood for it, it wasn't going to be a good discussion. So I've also learned to take his cues. Blanche, let me tell you, whether it's a traffic officer, whether it's a teacher, a school principal, people who wield power are complex people. They're not easy people. And but there's a difference between not being an easy person and being a mean person. Hage is not mean. He's a very gentle-spirited, kind-hearted person, but he's not an easy person. And people often think easy people are not good people. It's not true. There's a lot of people who are difficult, but they're very good people. And he's one of those people. He's a very good person. He's got a very kind heart. You'll be surprised the things that he does for people, the things that he goes through. And I have immense respect for that. I have immense respect for his heart. And why our families were able to blend is because his children have his heart. Is it easy to blend a family of children who are grown? It's not easy. As long as they are kind hearts, that there isn't a meanness, a malice in the relationships, it will survive. And that's what we have, and that's why our combined family works. There's no malice. I'm trying to think of all of his kids. Ever since they were born, he's been a politician. They've never known him as not a politician. So they've also learned ways to protect themselves. And one thing, for instance, we'll be sitting as a family talking and chatting. The minute security comes in and says, who is at the gate, the kids will disappear. They choose to be out of the limelight. And I think it's a protection mechanism, because the limelight can also burn. And we are entering the type of politics where people don't have boundaries and where they attack children. Children are innocent, and it's my red flag. If you really want to provoke me, attack a child of mine.
Yeah, we have seen the mama bearness in you.
Yes, no, I'll protect all of the kids in our family with my life. I will not accept an adult who takes a political issue or a personal dislike with any of us and takes it out on our kids. And it's one thing I really hope the media learns to restrain itself on. Even me as a spouse. Often I wonder, but why me? I'm not a politician. I'm not an elected office bearer. But I do have an office of the First Lady in the presidency. So I can't be exempted from any attacks. So I accept mine. But I will never accept attack on my child. I will never do it. If you want to take me out of my pose, if you want me to forget I'm a First Lady, attack one of my kids.
Now, Koplon, this was our first time witnessing how you spent Christmas Day, and now with Meme and Tate also here, ushering in the new year here. So, as a family, or yourself and your husband, apart from what our cameras have captured, is there another way that maybe you would want the public to know how you spend your usual holidays?
Yeah. So Hage lost his mother when he was 11. He went to play at one of the cattle posts, and he came back and he found his mother lying on the ground. She had just given birth and she basically bled to death when he was 11 years old. And I don't think we appreciate how consequential it is for a young boy to lose his mother. The unconditional love of a mother is critical in the socialization of a young boy. So when I'm very close to my parents and I do everything for my parents, but they can also frustrate me. My mother can call me 3-4 times a day. I mean, I don't have time to answer her calls every day. So sometimes she'll be calling, I just spoke to her, like, what is it that you need to speak to me about? So I'll ignore the call. Then he sees that and he gets so outraged with me. And he says, Monica, please call your mother back. Or please go visit your parents. Do you know what I would give to have my parents still alive? Or to have been able to be with my parents longer? Please focus on your parents. So he forces me, and I am close to my parents with or without him. But he really insists that I do whatever I can for my parents while they're alive, because he knows the pain of having really grown up without parents. So come Christmas Day, it's always about family. And one thing about Hage's family that I personally respect, both his kids and his extended family, is they understand he's a political family. They also understand that his view of family is really that the people in the party that he grew up with in exile is also his family. His view of family extends beyond blood. There are people who are not related to him, who he regards as family because of the bonds that they formed in exile. So he's got a very expansive view of family. So every single Christmas Day, Blanche, we spend at the farm, and there will always be many family members, especially from his side, who come and celebrate the day. And frankly, that's probably the only time in the year where they actually get to celebrate the day with him. It's spread across the Maize Triangle. There's some also from Korigas, and there's some from Swakop and Arandas as well. So we make sure, but it's always short notice, so not everybody gets to come. But the older family members we are starting to lose them. But he does make an effort every single Christmas Day to have a widespread of his family members. And then we'll normally travel to Swakopmund. And then and then my parents will be around as well. And just continue resting. So to him, family is the core of who he is.
Flo, you've talked about Hage, the husband, the family man, the politician. We want to know about Hage, the dancer.
Oh, God.
Where does that come from?
Yeah.
Some of my younger colleagues here cannot keep up. Even when President asked them to dance or make a move, they cannot. And I've seen on the campaign trail or during Swapo events, when he dances, his age mates cannot also keep up.
No, Hage can bust a move.
Where does it come from?
Hage can bust a move. And the apples didn't fall far from the tree. Some of his kids can bust a move.
Hage Junior as well. Nangula as well.
Nangi is the one who inherited the most, but all of them, I won't name them, but certainly Nangi is top there. But he's tall people aren't good dancers. And he happens to be, and Frank, I'm not a good dancer at all. He's the family dancer. So often we'll go to events, he'll be dancing, I'll be chilling here. We'll go to other countries. Hage will be on the dance floor, I'll be sitting with who else can't dance. And we'll be talking. So, but it's part of a very happy character. Yeah. He's a very jovial person. He can come to the house happy. If I had the kind of issues to deal with that he has, I would also have insomnia. He does have insomnia. He wakes up in the middle of the night. But he wakes up jovial. He wakes me up. He's laughing. He's happy. He's making jokes. Some mornings he puts on music. He starts to dance on his own. So he's a happy guy, and I think dance is an expression of who he is, because it's an articulation of happiness.
Now, Flo, the fashion of Hage Geingob.
Yes.
That many are now emulating or imitating.
Yeah.
And then again, that also comes to you as well.
Yes.
So, who dresses who?
He dresses himself, and then sometimes he tries to dress me. He has certainly better taste than me. There's sometimes my husband and I are going to an event, and you'll think we're going to different events because he's so decently dressed, and I'll be like, but casual. And then he'll ask me, Monica, are we going to the same event? I was like, yes. Sometimes I'll even have to change and just look about. I'm not too formal. It's not that he's formal, he's very smart. Mm-hmm. And he's got exceptional taste. So he he's got this thing, he because it's not touchy-feely people, they can't compliment. So he'll never say, my wife, you look good. You'll just hear, where did you buy that? Then I know I look good.
And then how do you compliment him?
No, you must tell that guy he looks good. And then he'll tell you, I know. He's naturally got style. And one of his daughters, Dangos, is also very fashionable. Mm-hmm. So it's people who just have this natural inclination, this natural flair towards clothes. Not everybody has it. Not everybody can put two things together that aren't normally aligned and look good in it. But he certainly has that flair.
Yeah. As we're nearing the end of this brief chat with you, what would you say? What does the president eat? What does your husband love eating? His favorite meal, whether it's here in Namibia or abroad while on official missions.
So whether we're going to Paris, to New York, to whichever sophisticated capital in the world, there are two things that if you want to get fired, you leave them. You do not travel without oshikandela, and in enough supply. Even if you're going for a week, there must be enough oshikandela for that week. And we do not travel without meal. Because in the morning, note to Namibians, million meal has very little nutritional value. You must put some bran in to add to its nutritional value. So obviously we're making million meal, we add some bran just for nutritional value. And he has it with his honey and with his oshikandela almost every morning. I wish I could vary his breakfast diet, but that's his staple. If we go to countries where the food is a bit not to his liking, he can easily end up, then he takes the morning, but then for lunch or dinner, he'll do the dikpap. And then he'll maybe order a steak or some meat or something or some sauce in order to eat that. But that is his favorite food. He's not a finicky person. He doesn't like these lasagnas, these pastas, these interesting, sophisticated things. He really likes basic food, oxtails, steaks, stews, chicken stews. He doesn't like fish. He claims it smells, which is not true. Fish is very important in his diet, but he hates it. So he's a very basic guy when it comes to food. Not very finicky at all. You can really give him anything and he'll eat it. He's not a particular... there's people who say, no, get me this, but make sure it's whole wheat and make sure he doesn't... No, he's not that guy. He's not that guy. He's a very, very simple eater.
And yourself?
I'm a simple eater as well, but I eat very little these days. I've intentionally reduced my red meat. I eat red meat maybe once every 2 weeks now. It's not good for... I've got high cholesterol. I'm trying to manage that, and red meat is really not healthy. So I'm reducing that in my diet. I'm trying to reduce it in his diet, but I'm failing. So I eat lots of chicken and fish. I try and do regular exercise at least 3 or 4 times a week. He tries to do the same. He's got a trainer who comes in. I go to a gym outside of the house. I'm a social person when it comes to exercise. I must exercise around people.
Now, Flon, with just 2 years left for your husband in office, what do you think that Namibians will miss the most? I know from media we will miss him because we know with
He's
him
got
we
some
always
sound
get
bites.
a good story. So what do you think Namibians will miss the most about him?
I think Hage has an above average sense of humor. He's exceptionally funny, like he's genuinely funny. You know, I think around leaders, you'll see people laughing at, like, that joke wasn't even funny, you're just laughing because the president made that joke. Hage is genuinely funny. So I think we'll miss that genuine sense of humor. I think the second thing that we'll miss is that he's very intentional about highlighting inclusion. I can't speak to the next person because that's a leadership style that will develop. Maybe it will also be there, and I think from all indications it will be. But one thing I certainly do think that stands out with Hage, he's very intentional about inclusion to the point where he made it a maxim, harambe. Nobody should feel left out. He built the concept of a Namibian house where all of us are the same. You are not better than me because you speak a particular language, you come from a particular region. He instilled that in us as a value. And that's something that we need to deal with as a nation. The concept, the idea of real equality. The concept, the idea of recognizing each other's humanity. He never put himself above anybody, even as a head of state. He is consultative. He listens to everybody and anybody. And I think we'll miss that. And then the third thing I think we'll miss about Hage is he's very engaging. And I often sometimes we drive, and I'm not, you know, the challenge in Namibia, when you say something, it's as if you're comparing him or you're criticizing somebody else. Mm-hmm. And I want to be clear, I'm not criticizing anybody else. But I do often think about when we're walking around in Tsumeb, or in Otavi, or in Chivarongo, or Grootfontein, that with Hage comes the motorcades and the authority levels. But children in those areas, in that maze triangle, who see this man and who know his father was a farm worker, his mom worked in the house of a farm. I'm a farm worker's child. And here he is in Otavi. I can also be president. Just normalizing that idea. For children to regularly see presidential motorcades in places like Otavi, in places like Grootfontein and Tsumeb, not coming through to a meeting, but somebody who stays there. I think that's a powerful message to every Namibian child, that this is not a position or a designation that is reserved or can only be done by specific people. It's available for everybody. And I think Hage opened many young people's eyes to that. In the beginning, there were lots of young girls especially who would say to me, I want to be a first lady. And I'll be like, no, man. What do you mean? You must be a president.
Yes, I remember.
But I don't get that anymore. Young girls are now saying to me, I want to be a president. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, yes.
Women power.
Yes, and I think we are likely to have a female president in this country in 2024, 2025. Mm-hmm. And that is also going to be powerful messaging. So I think we've had powerful messaging on inclusion from an ethnicity perspective for this country and from a socio-economic perspective. But in the future, we're also going to have powerful messaging on demographics. I'd like to think of myself as quite bright. I'm not an idiot. I would like to think I'm not. I would like to think I'm relatively educated. Mm-hmm. But I've learned so much from him. And I know this nation has learned concepts from him. You know, he asked one day, what is the problematic of the problem? You know, he's really taught us political concepts that we otherwise as a nation would have been oblivious to. Mm-hmm. He's a teacher.
And I think he's emphasis on systems,
processes, institutions. We all talk his language now.
The third wave of leadership.
The third wave of leaderships. And people in Africa are starting to take these concepts. He's taken green hydrogen to the point where we're signing agreements with the EU and enabling Namibia really to have an export to be able to be an exporter of energy. So just, and his respect of talent. You know, he's a man who respects talent. He sees talent. There are people who are insecure, who move in the opposite direction of talent. And there are people who are not insecure, who move towards talent, embrace it and develop it. That's what he's done. He's given so many young people huge opportunities. And I don't think it's going to stop, but I want to give him his flowers and say, you did that.
That's their love story. 9 years of pet names, protecting each other, and we're planning a quiet life into retirement. Continue resting in peace, August.
Just exercising.
Family exercise.
Yes.
Very
yes,
good.
yes.
Who is the winner?
Me.
All of us.
Okay.
Thank you, Chief.
The lady.
Thank you, Chief.